from the service point of view. Now, services are global. Most of the services we are using today, every day, be it looking at the weather forecast or something like that, they may be coming from the United States or from Korea, and they go across networks. And we are perceiving not the connectivity, but the service. Does it have a nice interface? I love it, okay? It's a lousy one, I don't like it. Is the interaction not too good? Well, it may depend on the fact that the screen is dirty and the touch screen doesn't work well. And it gives me a very bad perception point. And the network has nothing to do with it. And it cannot do anything about it, okay? So in this layering, we are seeing that there's a decoupling of services and network. And although the network has some influence, of course, on the quality is perceived at the service level. And you cannot control that. So, as an operator, we have to ask ourselves, where do we want to stay? Of course, we are big careers. We have always been big careers, and we will keep being big careers. But we may want also to be service providers. But it's getting more and more difficult, because these kind of services are now in the number of thousands, hundreds of thousands. They've been able to put up services in the last 3 months that exceed the number of services that altogether all operators in the world have been put forward in 100 years. And there's no match. We can be service enabler, that's fine. But again, how many services can you enable by your features? Probably you can provide something like authentication, identity, but that is related to our specific area. I've seen recently FITCE has developed a system for recognizing people just by looking at their hand. They have a lamp, infrared lamp, and if you place the hand there, they can detect your vein patterns. And this is translated into a code. That's a unique code. And what our operator is doing, we are trying to use our SIM card, okay, do encrypting on SIM card and proposing it as a standard. By the way we will succeed in doing that, everybody will use in their hands. Because it's much more convenient. You usually move around with your hand attached. Okay? So this is something that is really of concern. And depending on what you want to be, your network will shape in different ways. And we couldn't have our ideas very clear, although it's very important, I think, for business. Because if you want to be a big career, then the real issue is to decrease as much as possible the cost of operation. You don't care as much about the capital that you have to place in the network. That will be recapped over many years. But in order for this network to be efficient, to be competitive, you need to drive the cost of operation to zero, basically. Okay? It's a completely different approach if you're talking about a service-oriented network or a service-enabling network. We don't have the time to go into this kind of thing, but it's quite the reverse. If you are in the service business, you have to be very careful about investing capital, because the service is going to last a very brief period of time. If you're investing a lot of capital, you will never recover it, okay? But you don't care about the operation cost of the service, because as long as it's used, it's going to be paid. So it's fine. So it's quite the opposite, and you have to make up your mind what you want to be, because our competitors, the so-called over the top, which are not over the top in their mind, because in their mind they're just at the edges, so it's us that are going over the top. They already made up their mind. They see, well, what is a network? It's a set of data centers connected by big pipes that eventually will transfer all what is needed to be transferred at zero cost, okay? And I just look at the data center. I've tried to aggregate the data center and make it see. And here we have to change our mind. Those people are allocating various data centers for reliability reasons. Basically, we are organizing our data center because we have level of forces there, so we need to provide support to those level of forces. That's not the way of doing it, but we have to change our minds. We've got to understand that all our effort in providing more bandwidth is actually, from an economic standpoint, going to decrease the value of our network. We have to do that, that's fine, but it's decreasing the value of our network. And we've got to be aware of the fact that storage is an alternative to bandwidth. If you want to send 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes of data today the cheapest and fastest way of doing it is to put in on my neck tape, use FedEx as dispatcher. And there's no competition with bandwidth. Cheaper and faster. And this is happening everywhere. Because also if I'm walking through a city, I can have waves just circulating data. In the future, we already have seen this kind of thing. We are going to replace incandescent lamps with LEDs because they cost less, okay? More energy efficient. But if you have LEDs, you can modulate the signal. And you can actually transmit from every lamp 100 megabits per second. And you've got plenty of these all around. So these are alternative and wire communication, microservices, or information flowing. Now, coming to the center of my reasoning, the way operators are looking at quality is not the way that is affected from a customer point of view. 2 months ago, I received a mail at 8 in the morning from Apple. They told me, last night you saw a movie and you paid for an HD movie. We weren't able to dispatch an HD, so we are reimbursing you. Okay? I didn't watch the movie, so I asked my son, because he's a student, and I said, did you buy an HD? He said, yes, I bought one. Was it bad quality? No, it was not wrong. So it's standard quality, but I didn't realize it wasn't. Well, from my point of view, my perception of quality delivered by Apple raised immensely. They were telling me that the quality was not sufficient for what I paid, and so they just gave me back the money, full of it, not just a part. Okay? Now, I started to think, imagine if I had detected a loss of quality, and I would have called Telecom Italia. And let's suppose for a moment that that guy I was talking to was taking care of this kind of thing, okay? What would I have done? Well, we would have called a meeting, getting many people from the company, saying, hey, we've got a customer that is not receiving the quality we have designed in the network. What can we do? And there would have been many, many meetings involving many, many people. At the end, probably for several months, there would be a proposal saying, if we spend 100 million euros, we can improve our network capacity and decrease the probability of having this kind of thing. We would not have reached the satisfaction of the customer. We would have spent a lot of money. The reaction time would have been longer. But this is our approach. Apple spent 4 euros. Actually, they didn't spend, they didn't make 4 euros. But they increased my perception of quality by so much. So I think that when we're dealing with the quality of services, we should really take the standing from the outside of the network and put ourselves in the shoes of our customer and see what is it that they care of. And of course, my reasoning has been about basically the mass market. If you're talking about the enterprise market, then you may have, and you usually have, the need for quality of service. But again, usually this quality of service is part of the contract. You need to deliver me this kind of megabit per second. And more important, if something goes wrong, you have to fix it within 24 hours, or within 3 days, or within 2 hours. Usually quality is perceived when it's missing, not when you're delivering. Okay. So it's more about the process of understanding if something is going bad and how to intervene, how to fix the real issue. Okay. Quality will be the line to my customer has broken down because, I don't know, something at home just dug something and cut the wire. What can you do with that? Well, if you know the customer, if you have the data of the customer, the complete data of the customer, you may know that he has a cell phone. And you can call him and say, hey, your fixed line, unfortunately, was broken. It will be fixed as soon as possible, but in the meantime, you can use your cell phone, paying exactly the same tariff as you would pay for the fixed line. Now, that will be received as quality. Okay? And it's probably cheaper than saying, okay, let's provide each customer with 2 different fixed lines just in case. Okay. So I really believe that we have to work with quality, but we have to work with quality from an overall perspective.